I am delighted to be here. The only thing is that unlike the other speakers who highlighted how their funding applies to everyone, this one's a little bit different. But I'm excited to share it with you, and hopefully either you or you know somebody that would be interested and eligible to apply for this one. So I'm representing the Tri-Service Nursing Research Program. I arrived there this past summer, so I still feel like I'm relatively new, but I was a recipient of the award before, so I'm excited about the program itself. I do have to put this disclaimer. This allows me to speak a little bit more extemporaneously and not read word for word for what's in our published guidelines, but that's the reason that's there. And our mission is to facilitate military nursing research to optimize the health of military members and their beneficiaries. And I think there's a common theme among all of these organizations. We want to make nursing better, more health, good stuff. But in this particular case, we're focused specifically on military nursing. And the reason that we exist is because of some of these challenges that we have. We have a fairly small but mighty group of nurse researchers that are in the military. And it's tricky because we move every 3 to 4 years to a new assignment to build a traditional program of research. In addition to those moves, we deploy. We also get tasked to do other things that are not always 100% focused on research either. And the other challenge, too, is that it's not really intentional, but it does seem like we have sort of this very closed community. We don't give a lot of access to our data very easily, and if you do, it's a very long and involved process. So it's hard for civilian researchers to do research within the military population itself, in particular with nursing. And the other challenge, too, is sometimes there are some very military relevant questions that don't really apply outside of the military with that. And so it limits our funding opportunities. It may be the best clinical question that needs a good research question, but none of these other funding agencies would see it as relevant to their portfolio. And so that's how TSNRP got started 25 years ago this year. With that, it started out as sort of a congressional earmark and continued until 2007 when there was no earmark that year. And that, I think, was a blessing in disguise because it forced us to sort of build that into our budget. And so since 2008, that's been a stable source of funding. I don't know if you noticed, I'll go back to it just to highlight this. Unlike the VA and some of the other, even American Heart with their $4 billion, we get $6 million a year, so relatively modest with that. We do have several goals. What's fun for me is not only do we fund research, and we have about 75 to 80% of our budget goes directly to grants themselves, and the remainder of it really is to build the community and the infrastructure to support that. And so to capture those young nurses as they start to have questions about why is it we do this, that we can help them through that process of either evidence-based practice or through research itself and mentoring them through it. So that's the fun part, I think, about our program. These are our research priorities. They sort of fit into 3 large categories, again, very military specific, and that's intentional with that. But you can see it's force health protection, then also the nursing competencies and practice, and leadership, ethics, and mentoring. So we have several award categories. With that, it starts at the very basic side, even the evidence-based practice awards that we have, and going all the way up through some of these investigator-initiated or kind of our established investigators that have projects and programs of research to work with that. The funding varies a little bit. I didn't put it here. This is my first time to come to this. Next time I'll know that I need to put down dollar signs for you. But it's about $150,000 a year for up to 3 years. And again, that depends on the award and all that, and happy to talk to you about that. But that's the intent for that. The eligibility piece is where we're a little bit different. And so the principal investigators need to be one of these categories. If you're on active duty, you're eligible for any of those awards. If you're at a military treatment facility, that's where the evidence-based practice awards need to be at. If you happen to be a nurse in the reserves or a National Guard, then you've got options for the graduate, novice, investigator initiative, initiated or exploratory. And if you're retired, then there are some categories for you as well. Now you notice that doesn't apply to our veteran nurses, so nurses that served but didn't retire, as well as our spouses. Sometimes military spouses are great nurse researchers but not eligible for this, and again, that's just because of how the program is designed and developed. But that doesn't mean that any of you couldn't be a really important and strong team member on any of these projects. So if you are excited or interested, passionate about helping military nursing get better, we would love to have you part of a team. I'm happy to connect you to an investigator that could be eligible, that might have the same topic area for you. Again, it's the PI part that's the difference in eligibility with that. But that doesn't apply to the entire team for sure. I did want to just highlight two other things. Again, the focus is not solely on grants, even though that's what we're talking about today, but there are other ways that we really foster and encourage research. And we have 4 research interest groups that are relatively active. You can see them here: anesthesia, biobehavioral health, en route care. So that's when we move patients from place to place. We tend to do that a lot in the military, especially critically injured trauma patients. And so how do we do that? And then also with women's health, particularly looking at gender differences among military women. And the other side of it, too, is we have these educational programs to looking at how do we design and develop an evidence-based practice project, and having a workshop to do that, a grant camp where we talk about how to put a grant together, what a strong one looks like, go through the process, a post-award workshop, making sure once you're awarded that you are able to manage that well, which is trickier than you might think. And then a dissemination course, which is where we get to share what's happening in nursing research and evidence-based practice. For those courses, the priority, and we give travel funding to those military nurses, but they're also potentially open on a space available basis for others that are involved in military nursing in some way. And again, they would cover their own travel costs with that. But those are the educational programs that we offer as well. So again, I'll take questions at the very end, but if you are one of those eligible folks or very interested in it, please come talk to me. I'd be happy to share some information. Thanks.